Now, I don't know a lot of you here, so there's probably not many of you who know that I have always wanted to be a model. Ever since I was a little girl, and I'd look at the Sears Roebuck and the JCPenney catalog and see all those little girls in their striped shirts with their blonde pigtails and their Bonnie Bell lip gloss, I wanted to be a model. I even identified what I thought would be my signature pose, and it went something like this. I was certain that that would make me a star. Even now, in my 40s, at 5'4", and completely average in every way, I am certain that it's just a moment of time before I'm discovered and become a model. I spend every minute of every day trying to smile just the right way and trying to say just the right thing so that the cameras that are surrounding me at all times will catch me in their spotlight. So clearly, I'm delusional. And with that, you can imagine how excited I was when a friend of mine told me a friend of hers knew somebody who was putting together a charity fashion show, and they needed volunteers to be models. I signed up so fast it made my head spin. Unfortunately, this wasn't the kind of fashion show I had in mind. I'd been hoping for swimwear, or maybe haute couture, or the gold standard of fashion shows, the evening gown. But no, this was a fitness fashion show, and I was cordially invited to wear a sweatsuit. But they told me it was a high-end sweatsuit, and that made it okay. So I walked into the Lululemon in Clarendon feeling very important, and the perky little sales girl presented me with my blue sweatsuit. Between you and me, the sweatsuit was blue. But the little tag on the sweatsuit said its color was sanctuary. The little tag on the sweatsuit also said that this sweatsuit costs $125, and that took my breath away. Now, I will concede that sweatsuits have come a long way since I was looking at them in the Sears catalog. This sweatsuit was not made of velour. It did not have a hoodie, and it certainly did not have one of those steel rings that you use to zip it up. This was a high-end sweatsuit, so I was very careful with it as I walked into the dressing room. I didn't have any trouble putting the top on, but the pants were kind of problematic. I had to tug and pull and wrench and wiggle and get them up over my hips, and when I came out of the dressing room, I told the perky little sales girl that they were too small. Oh, no, they're not. Have you looked at your ass? So I made a three-quarter turn, checked myself out in the mirror, and oh my God, sanctuary indeed. My ass was perfect in these pants. I was thrilled. The little perky sales girl said to me, "Just wear sneakers for the show." And I said, "No problem," as I walked out of the store. But this was a problem. This was a big problem because I did not own a pair of sneakers. I had never owned a pair of sneakers. I hate exercise. I do not like to sweat. I am not interested in elevating my heart rate. I mean, hell, I will stay on the couch the entire weekend if I can get around it. I do not like exercise. I did not have sneakers. But sneakers were standing between me and my dream of being a model, so I showed up at the Ritz-Carlton, Washington, with my new sneakers in a bag. And they directed me to the dressing room, where there were 9 other volunteers, beautiful women, and they were all standing in little groups of 2s and 3s, and they were laughing and chatting and having a lovely time. And for me, it was just like high school. And I was that geeky girl with braces and saddle shoes, good grades and no friends. Now, a couple of the women came over and introduced themselves to me, which was nice, but it really made it worse. The first one was Katie. "Hi, I'm Katie. I write a gossip column for the Washington Post." And then there was Angie. "Hi, I'm Angie. You probably recognize me from News Channel 9. There was even a real model there. I mean, there were all these beautiful, successful women, and then there was me. I had brand new sneakers, and I had to sit on the floor to lace them up. Finally, it was time for the fashion show, and I was so excited. I knew exactly what to do. I mean, I'd been practicing for this moment my entire life. They called my name, introduced my sanctuary sweatsuit, and I headed down the runway. It was walk, 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 pose, turn. Walk, 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 pose, turn, smile. Walk, 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 turn, turn, turn. Walk, 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 and ta-da! The crowd went wild. I was brilliant. Now, after the show, they wanted us to mix and mingle with the audience, which to me sounded like hell. Contrary to popular belief, as much as I like to be the center of attention, I'm actually an introvert. And I had used up all my extrovert back in the dressing room. I really wanted to leave, but I had to stay. I had to stay for the goodie bag. As a volunteer, I was promised a VIP goodie bag, and the goodie bags were rumored to contain valuable coupons, little bottles of bath and body products, and best of all, a cupcake. Not just any cupcake. This was a chocolate chiffon with red buttercream cupcake from Georgetown Cupcakes. You've heard of them. That's because they have a TV show. And any night of the week, you can stand in line around the block for an hour for the privilege of buying a Georgetown cupcake. Suggested retail value $5. Now, I didn't have to pay $5. My cupcake was going to be free. All I had to do was wait for the goodie bag. So I stood in line until I finally got to the front of the line. They handed it to me. I looked in, and there it was. In its little pink box with a daisy sticker, my very own Georgetown cupcake. My free Georgetown cupcake. But that cupcake hadn't really been free for me. I'd worked hard for that cupcake. My idea was to take this cupcake home and really savor it. I looked around the room, and the other models were popping open the pink boxes and eating their cupcakes right there and then. They were getting crumbs all over their sweatsuit and frosting up their nose. It was disgusting, but not me. I was going to go home. I was going to get a plate and a napkin and a beverage, and I was going to spend some time with this cupcake. My free cupcake. I'd earned this cupcake. It wasn't like they were paying me to model for them, and I had given them some of my best work. I deserved that cupcake. I was entitled to that cupcake. It had been hard for me to get this cupcake. I had bought sneakers for this cupcake. I had enjoyed the locker room with all those Barbie doll women for this cupcake, and I was wearing pants so tight they cut off circulation to my lower extremities. I earned this cupcake. I was entitled to this cupcake. In fact, now that I thought about it, I was going to need 2 cupcakes. So I walked back up to the goodie bag table, where I was informed that the goodie bags were strictly 1 per person. I considered just reaching over the counter and grabbing my next cupcake off the stack, but if I did that, everybody would do that. And there'd be frosting flying, and it would be chaos and mayhem, so that was not a good idea. I needed a better idea. I needed a plan. So I thought, and I got clever, and I came up with the perfect plan. And it was as if I'd been conniving my way into free cupcakes my entire life. I went to the bathroom, I opened my goodie bag, I took out all that propaganda and those tiny bottles of goo, and I put the cupcake right down in the bottom of the bag. And then I got all that rubble together and piled it back up, so the cupcake was virtually undetectable at the bottom of the bag. I walked back out to the lobby. I walked right up to that cupcake table with the matron. I looked her right in the eye. I opened my bag, and I looked at it, and I frowned. And I looked at the stack of cupcakes, and then I shrugged my shoulders. All of this was to let this woman know that I didn't get a cupcake in a nonverbal way. I didn't want to say anything because to speak would be to lie, and I just hate a lie. So, I looked at her, I looked at the bag, frowning face. Look, shrug. Look, frowning face. Look, shrug, until finally this woman, clearly embarrassed by my pantomime, grabbed a cupcake and stuffed it down in my bag. Ta-da! I got my free cupcake. I was thrilled. I was finally ready to go home. But my victory was short-lived. In the car, I started to think about what I'd done. And I don't know if you've ever been in a 12-step program, or if you've ever spent an afternoon in church, or if you've even had a shred of conscience. But if you have, you'll know that you can't go around stealing cupcakes from charity events where you're a volunteer and not feel just a little bit bad about yourself. And I was feeling kind of bad about myself. Now, you might be thinking that cupcake, no big deal. But to my way of thinking, cupcakes are just a gateway theft. It would be just a few days before I started stealing cars and robbing banks. So I had to make good on my transgression. I had to turn things around. So I thought, and I racked my brains, and I considered going to Lululemon and apologizing, but that would have been embarrassing. So I thought about going to Georgetown Cupcakes and just giving them some money, but that probably just would have confused the girl behind the counter. I did consider making an anonymous donation to the charity, but that sounded ridiculous. So what would a model do? I didn't know. So I went home and I broke into those pink boxes, and the cupcakes didn't look so hot. They were all smushed and squished up against the side of their grease-soaked cardboard boxes, and, well, the chocolate cake was dry. And that fire engine red buttercream was so sweet it made my teeth hurt. I didn't even eat the second cupcake. The next morning I woke up with a sugar headache and stumbled into the bathroom where I learned that fire engine red frosting will indeed turn your pee red. I mean, I thought I was dying. I spent all day on the couch just wrestling with my conscience. It was like I had Jiminy Cricket on this shoulder, and he was crying into his hat. And on this shoulder, I had Satan. And he was sitting in his Barco lounger with his feet up, smoking a cigar and watching Sportsnet. And the two of these were arguing. Satan would say, "Hey, it's just a cupcake." And Jiminy would say, "She's destined for a life of crime." So I listened to these voices in my head, and I sat on the couch, and I struggled with the guilt and the shame, and it was a really long day, especially when I figured out what was the core of the problem, when I identified the point where I fell from grace, the moment when it all fell apart. And I felt terrible. I couldn't believe I'd been so thoughtless. I couldn't believe I'd made such a rookie mistake. I mean, don't you see? A real model would have never eaten that cupcake.